Wow, that introduction's longer than my speech. So I didn't have to do this a few years ago, and now I can't see without it. So I appreciate you being patient. Thank you, everyone. I first want to thank the Nevada Press Association for this honor and express my appreciation to Barry Smith for his strength of character in following the best traditions of the association. If there's one thing spending my career as a newspaper columnist in Nevada has taught me, it's that speaking truth to power and standing on principle can come at a cost. Thanks again, my friend. I started my column at the Las Vegas Review-Journal in 1988, following the death of the intrepid Ned Day, who is a deserved member of the NPA Hall of Fame. Ned was a real character and a fine writer. A few months into my tenure, I was approached by a reader at a public gathering who was excited to meet me and tell me how much she admired my stories. She said, "Oh, John, I love your work. You're just like Ned Day incarcerated." I tried to take that as a compliment. When you write a daily column, you soon discover that just about everything is grist for the deadline mill. Through the years, the columns piled up by the hundreds, the stories never ending. While some may have wondered about the method of the daily grind, I long to be given one more day of the week. The truth is, for better or worse, I have never run out of ideas. Not all of them a material, I'll grant you, but the characters and issues just keep coming. And those characters, now, unless you met them, you'd surely have found their existence hard to believe. Many, perhaps most, of the names are lost to history. But I must mention a couple. There was Johnny Tuck, the boxing trainer whose name still graces the old downtown gym he once owned. Johnny was from St. Louis and came out here in part to train a generation of fighters, and for a while to keep an eye on Sonny Liston late in that troubled champ's career. Johnny's gym was brimming with hoodlums and troubled souls and some very good pugilists. When one of his fighters would get arrested and thrown in jail, Johnny would call a friend of a friend downtown and get them released, as he would say, on his own reconnaissance. He was a king of malaprops, Johnny was. And while we're in a pugilistic mood, I was channel surfing the other morning and came across an old Bowery Boys movie featuring Lou Nova. He was a former heavyweight contender who also, like Eddie Sins in the introduction, once fought and lost to Joe Louis. Lou made a living playing palookas and mob heavies in Hollywood for a while, then eventually retired to Las Vegas, where I found him shooting dying dice at the Union Plaza and living in a double-wide trailer on Valley View Boulevard. Above the door hung a sign that said, "Welcome to Casanova." Casanova, get it? That was Lou Nova's sense of humor. Lou was a 1 in a million character who told me he lost every time he played craps, but he would win it all back with interest as, quote, "as soon as I figure out my system." One last little story. As a columnist, I went out of my way to cross paths with a generation of Las Vegas hoodlums, many of whom wound up in Nevada's Casino Black Room. One in particular was a fellow named Salvatore Springfield Sam Mannerite, as proud and unsuccessful a gangster as ever set foot on the Las Vegas Strip. Sam was about to be sentenced to more federal prison time for a lame caper and was at the courthouse with his lawyer one day. Sam was such a dedicated mob guy, he spent most of his adult life in prison. The rest of his time he spent in Las Vegas as a member of the Genovese family. In his latter years, Sam was having trouble with his health and found one of the advantages of an extended engagement at government expense was free medical care. And so when his heart went bad, he had surgery. When his stomach ulcers and spleen went fritzy, he had more surgery. He lost his part of this and part of that and part of the other thing and complained to me about all the surgeries he had and all the parts he was having removed. He also complained about the marshals. At one point in my interview, I said to him, "Sam, it sounds to me like you're trying to escape from prison one piece at a time." He laughed, but only a little. And now to the matter at hand, the Hall of Fame. Wow. I believe there is no proper way to discuss the august group of mothballed, ink-stained scribblers who inhabit the Nevada Press Association's Hall of Fame without mentioning the name of its most celebrated corpse, and that is Mark Twain. When it comes to Mark Twain, far too much has been said, and so I'll say a little more. Let's face it, Twain had what can only be described as a downright dull writing career after departing Nevada newspapering at the Territorial Enterprise ahead of a pending duel, as legend has it. I mean, it's easy to write a good stretcher or spin a yarn if no one is threatening to shoot you or sue you into bankruptcy. Despite his abbreviated tenure in the Silver State, Twain is the gold standard by which all scribes are judged, and I suppose that's only right. You may be as accomplished as Dan DeQuille or Ned Day, Hank Greenspun or A.D. Hopkins, or any of a dozen or few dozen other lucky stiffs and broken down deadline artists who are members of this Hall of Fame. But rest assured, you'll never be another Mark Twain. After much study, I have no doubt who would prevail in one of those tarantula juice drinking contests, followed by an arm wrestling match and ending with a duel at a dozen paces. If it were held today between Twain and me, I would. First, I'm a practiced whiskey drinker and once hit the broadside of a barn with a firearm. It wasn't loaded at the time. It was in the pickup truck I was driving. Second, and more importantly, if Twain and I faced off in a battle of wits and whiskey and Smith and Wesson daring do, I'd have the distinct advantage of age. I am 56 years old, and at last count, Twain would be nearly 182. If I couldn't outright, outdrink, or outshoot him, I should think at the very least I could outrun him. With due respect to the Lincoln of our literature, I purloin a piece of prose with due attribution and a tip of my hat. The rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated. Twain said that, or should have. Of my career as a columnist at the Sun and the Review Journal, I will be brief. So many people encouraged me, inspired me along the way, both from inside the craft as well as on the street, that to name them all would be impossible. The fact there are so many people in this room right now who deserve this honor is not lost on me. From the academic side, I want to thank Sue Hughes from Western High School, who encouraged me to participate, and Pam Hicks and Eldon Korach, and from Western Washington University, Pete Steffens, Lincoln Steffens' son, Lyle Harris and Gerson Miller. From the Las Vegas Sun, the entire Greenspun family, Mike O'Callahan and Bill Guthrie, and many, many others. At the RJ, the fellow who took me under his wing, Mike Henley, when I was a youngster, still working at the Sun as an intern as a teenager at Craig Road Speedway. Mary Hausch, Tom Keevil, Tom Mitchell, Annette Caramia, Sherman Frederick, Charlie Waters, and Mike Engel all encouraged me and all took heat for having me around. To all the copy editors, I thank you. You will remain anonymous because, let's face it, that's your fate. And to name all of those of you who have saved me from immense embarrassment would only encourage the Nevada Press Association to rescind this generous honor. There's a woman in my life when I was a boy. Her name was Catherine Curtis. She was my grandmother. I lived with her for several years at Victory Village in Henderson. She taught me a love of reading and writing. My folks, Jan and Prince Smith, encouraged me at every turn. And I especially want to take time to thank my Amelia and Sally, who inspire me every day. I want to thank my family. My sister Chris is here. My brother-in-law Herman, thank you for being here. And for encouraging me and enduring some of that heat I've taken over the years. The press in the real West isn't supposed to be muzzled or corporately controlled. It's supposed to be free-spirited and independent and capable of raising hell in high places. A free and independent press isn't a guarantee, it's a goal. Here's to pursuing that goal like a sinking star on a new moon night in Nevada. My favorite place in the world. And thank you for your time, and I'll see you on the road to Rhyolite, where I have it on good authority. There's a job opening for a newspaper columnist.